Concretepastures.
That's clean. That's right.
Hello, family. Welcome back to Concrete Pastures. I'm Nancy Mlemwasisi. Oh my goodness, I am so excited. When things fall in place, this is one of them. Again, it's almost a year. Our guest, I met her at the African Business Week. And since then, we've been trying to get together, and she's finally here. She is an inspiration to our community. I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. But first, before I introduce her to you, thank you so much for tuning in. We do not take this for granted. A lot of you have been watching us, listening to our content without subscribing. Please support us by subscribing. This way we can grow and bring amazing guests like our guest today. So, for anybody who's new, this is a space where we highlight immigrants who have relocated to different countries in search of greener pastures. We share our stories of our various experiences and lessons we've learned along the way, and we share a new perspective on the journey of an immigrant. So, whether you are currently an immigrant, as soon or later to be an immigrant, or just curious, come along with us on this journey and let's get a better understanding of what it really means to be an immigrant. Again, subscribe, like, and share our content. Who are we talking to today? Oh my God. Tafadzwa Katiyo. She is an executive of Hungwe Travel, a 28-year family-owned boutique global travel agency. She is passionate about the continent of Africa, finance, social, and economic empowerment, and leveraging the power of entrepreneurship. Tafadzwa also founded the organization ToseSonke, forgive me for this, which means together, and enjoys playing chess and traveling. For close to 2 decades, Tafadzwa built a strong career in finance in New York, here in the NYC, people. She thoroughly enjoys the journey of offering solutions and, most of all, the unveiling and self-discovery that takes place through life pursuits. Welcome, my dear. How are you?
I am great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Our first guest from Zimbabwe.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'm
I'm
excited
trying to
about
touch all 54 countries, and
that.
we're finally touching our neighbor, Zimbabwe. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you.
Oh my God, this is finally happening. I'm super excited you are here. I'm just here to be inspired by your journey. And as always, we start from home. What are the fun memories that you remember growing up in Zimbabwe?
So my fun memories all center around like family and community. And it's something you hear a lot from Africans all over the world.
Yeah.
Just that sense of togetherness. So a lot of my memories are being in Zimbabwe with cousins, relatives, events. There's always something exciting happening, weddings, children getting named. So those are the most profound memories I have.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I've been to Zimbabwe in Harare, and at the time it was before everything went, left per se. Your country was by far more developed than our country, and I remember being there. I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. This is very developed. And my sister went to school there. She always spoke highly of how Zimbabwe was. How was it going to school there? Did you go to school there?
Yes, so I went to school there, but more because my family lived outside Zimbabwe for a while when I was young. So I did get to experience going to high school in Zimbabwe, which was a very exciting time. As a teenager, you're coming into yourself, and then going to high school. And it was definitely interesting because for myself, it was reintroducing myself into the social space of Zimbabwe.
Oh, wow.
So making friends, and like you say, it was a beautiful experience. The teachers, some of whom I'm still in touch and in contact with today.
Really?
Yes. And it's a very impressionable place to be for, especially for high school, and cementing friendship, like long-term friendships.
So when did you leave Zimbabwe?
So my journey of leaving Zimbabwe started when I was younger, probably like 5 years old. My family moved to Tanzania, and then we lived there for just a few years, and maybe 2 years or so. And then finally we moved to England, and then we stayed in London for a while.
Oh, wow.
Until I was basically going to high school, and that's when we moved back to Zimbabwe. But it was never a play. It never felt like we were detached from Zimbabwe, because in the home we spoke the local Zimbabwean language. We spoke Shona.
Oh, nice.
And the food, we ate sadza, and the local. My mom found ways to make local Zimbabwean dishes in the home, although we weren't in Zimbabwe. So moving back to Zimbabwe in high school wasn't so much. It wasn't a big shock. I was still familiar with a lot of things. Yes.
No, amazing. So once you decided to leave Zimbabwe, when was this? What year was it?
So I left in Zimbabwe in 1999. I was still a teenager going to college.
Wow.
And that's how I ended up in the United States.
And so how was it integrating in the US? Since, I mean, you've already had the bag of travel, and now you're coming to the US. How was it integrating here, especially in New York?
So, because in the past, when we'd moved to other countries, it was as a family, and this was my first solo, I guess, migration.
Yeah.
And at the time, Zimbabwe was an amazing country. It still is. But at the time, when you're young, you don't realize the magnitude of what it is moving to another country. So I was in La La Land, picturing, all these sitcoms and shows when people attending college. And that was the reference I had, although I'd visited the US before when I was younger, but this was different because in my mind I was picturing Saved by the Bell type shows, and now I'm going to America and I'm going to be in college. So that was my frame of reference then, as a teen moving. And I just wanted, my dream was like, okay, I'm gonna move. This is how this is how life is going to be. And at the same time, coming from a strict home where it's like, okay, your grades are constantly being monitored. You're always asked questions. What are you gonna be? What are you doing? And so coming to the US was a little bit of a culture shock from what I was expecting, watching shows and then at home, and then now getting here and seeing that it's a little bit more different. And it's not the same as like the movies that I was seeing, like in terms of day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And when I first moved here, I came to Alabama. So it was really in the thick of America.
You went to Alabama.
Yes. So, and yes, being there, one of the main core things that were a culture shock were language. So in most metropolitan cities in the US, you have diverse populations, and usually the Americans in those cities, when they speak and their accents, it's the accents we know
Yep.
or are used to, like, you know, television accents. So
Mm-hmm.
then coming to Alabama, it's the Southern drawl, it's the
Mm.
real American
Wow.
accent. So I recall sometimes people would have to say things 2 or 3 times because I keep asking, and I'm like, pardon me, huh? You know, because I
Listen,
just,
to today, I think I would be, I still don't understand the accent very well. I have to really pay attention to get the accent.
yes. So, and you know, the most fascinating part is it's always both ways because I'm speaking and they're also trying to understand me.
Yep.
And then after a while, you get asked, like, I remember certain questions where people would ask me, like, oh my God, your English and your grammar is so good. How come? And I'm thinking, well, I'm speaking your language, you know. So it was interesting in terms of like communication and from the bat, which is like the foundation of integrating into
Yep.
a
The
new
new
place.
country. Wow.
Yes.
Listen, you're giving me memory lane because I had the same expectations as you. Whatever I've seen on TV, that's what I was expecting America to be. As soon as I hit JFK, I was like, whoa, okay, this is this is different. But yeah, the picture that is portrayed and what we are sold is very different from the reality of it all. So it takes a while to really integrate and find yourself and accept what the
Ye-
reality of being here.
Yes.
So
Yes.
fast forward, you are
Mhm,
here, you are in Alabama.
mhm.
What were you doing in Alabama? Were you there for school or?
Yes, so I was in university. So primarily it was school, and I was very lucky that the school I chose, University of South Alabama, they had a program
Mhm.
to help foreign students acclimate to the American culture.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, so throughout my entire university, my stay there was learning, you know, just foundational things and even classes for when you leave school, getting a job, you know, just different things that were going to help you integrate into the society.
That's amazing. So when did you start working in finance?
So once I graduated from my undergraduate, I immediately started applying for jobs in finance. And so initially coming to the country, so my mom had a background in accounting. That was her expertise.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think all parents know their children because I wanted to be an accountant like my mom, and she discouraged me without discouraging me. And she's like, no, you're really good at numbers, so you'd make an amazing accountant, but I think you should go maybe towards finance. That might be something that you would, you know, be more successful at. So I
Mm.
took her advice, which, you know, is usually you're fighting and resisting parents. So this
Yeah.
time I just was like, you know, you're in college, you don't know. So I just said, okay, mom knows best. So while in Alabama, I had the opportunity to intern for a family-owned business that gave investment advice and retirement advice. And this was like in a local church that I used to attend.
Mm.
Uh, this family also attended the same church. Then they found out I was from Africa. And then at the time I was applying for different internships. And then they said, you know, if you're interested, we're looking for someone. And was pretty much my break into finance, was working for this home office where they dealt with finance and helping, you know, especially the Black community invest and save for retirement.
Okay.
And yeah, so that was my first internship. And then when I graduated, I had to move from Alabama. There weren't that many, you know, opportunities in finance. So I pretty much started applying for jobs and it was like old school where I was like, okay, let me get the newspaper, and then you start going through
Wow.
the newspaper to see like what's in there. And that's because my father, when I was looking for a job, he's the one who gave me like, okay, let's do this. And for him, his era was newspapers. So that's just what I did, because that's the advice I got,
Yeah.
from him. And then I, commingled that with the school, like the counselors at the school that used to give career advice. And at the time, it was the break of the internet. So you'd still have to go to like an internet cafe or the school library to access a computer. Because at the time, no, like not everyone had a computer just sitting in
Yeah.
their dorm room. Yes. So that's how I broke into finance. I literally started applying everywhere, and I knew I wanted to be in banking. So I just started listing all the banks in the US and writing to them and applying for for work. And when you're green out of university, you're like, okay, I want this job that has this corner office, and and you're delusional a little bit, but you're
Uh-huh.
driven. That was me. And after a few letdowns, I just kept at it, going to the same places. And then it now became more of, okay, what do you have that I can do? I'm here. I want to do
You
anything.
give in. Like, let me give in. What do you have that I can do?
Exactly. And when I started approaching it from that angle, then, that's when I got my first break into banking.
Oh, wow. Who gave you the first break?
SunTrust Bank.
Oh, I've never heard of that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, it's mostly in the South, and they're now part of Truist
Mm.
Bank. Yes, so that was my first break into like corporate life properly,
Wow. No, amazing. The power of not giving up. It's just amazing. For a lot of
Yes,
people, they just expect things to just happen. But the more you
yes,
push through, the things will come up. You might get
yes,
disappointments here and there, which is inevitable. Not everything is,
yes,
yeah. Being an
yeah.
immigrant, I mean, it's part of the journey. It is part of the
It
journey.
is. And like you say, you know, and I was out, it's not like I just applied like that. This was like over the space of like months, and like it literally became a job looking for a job,
Yeah.
because it was either that or I go back to Zimbabwe. And
Mm-hmm.
at the time, I knew I wanted to go to graduate school. So it didn't make sense for me to go back to Zimbabwe, then start saving up again to try and come back.
Yeah.
And during that time, literally working at the mall, just doing anything, because you still need to survive.
Of course, of
And that's the
course.
part like people forget. You're balancing survival versus your dream,
Yes, yes.
So yeah, it took several months, but because I was literally obsessed, I was sometimes turning in 3, 4 applications to the same place in a week. That's how I was.
Listen, just in case somebody missed my application, let me submit it again.
Yes. Yes, that was me.
I've been there. I've been there.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So fast forward,
Mhm.
you've built this amazing career in finance, and now you are um, the executive of Hungwe Travel. What inspired you to transition from
So
your dreams to family business?
yeah, so while here and building my career in finance, most of it, which was a testament to the immigrant communities as well as American communities. I would meet other um, foreigners who've come here and they're in finance. Then they'll be like,
Mm,
oh, have you tried doing this? Oh, let me introduce you to this person. And that's pretty much how I learned of a lot of the opportunities that were out there. And yeah, then that's how, and then just hard work. like just knowing you need to produce results.
Yeah.
The thing about the US is results are what you speak for you to get
Yep.
to where you are. So just delivering, and yeah, so that's how I pretty much grew in my career in finance. And then transitioning to the family business actually happened while I was in finance. So a lot of times it actually started in university where people ask, where are you from? Then they start asking you about your country. They want to learn more. You
Yeah.
start telling them about the country. And then the same thing happened in my professional life, where I'll be in finance working, and then I just strike up conversations about Zimbabwe. And then the next thing is people say, oh, we want to go. And at the time, my parents ran this travel agency. So I just, you don't realize the gift you have of your home country,
Yes.
until people start asking you all these questions, and it makes you really reflect on memories and things to tell them so that they have a picture of where you come from. So the first time, so in college, I'll tell people about Zimbabwe. Then I let them know that, oh, my parents have the agents. So if they ever visit, and they need help. So people would go, then they'll come back, and then they'll give me their feedback. We share stories. Then now when I was in finance, I would meet people who say, you know what, I want to go, but because I know you, let's go together, So a group of my co-workers that became friends all carved out time, and then they said, no, we know we can go, and your family will make sure we're taken care of, but you're going to come with us. So I curated the trip for them, everything, and then we covered South Africa, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. And then while I was with them, I'll never forget this. This was on the Zambezi River. We were taking like a sunset cruise, enjoying our sundowners and snacks.
Yeah.
And then one of them said to me, I know you because, we've worked together, and in finance, you're amazing. I can tell you're passionate about it. But this is what you're meant. This is your purpose. We've had an amazing trip, and
Wow.
you did this for us, and I think this is what your purpose is. And I remember laughing it off like, oh no, I just do this for fun, and because I would travel for fun and the like.
Yeah.
And that's how I guess the seed was planted. And then fast forward, after that trip, they shared pictures, and from there other people started coming to me, hey, can you help me? I'm trying to go here. I've seen this, trip you've done. And then, back then, Facebook, there was High Five, then there was Facebook.
Oh, yes. High five. I forgot.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had pictures of myself traveling before the influencers,
Yes. Before the
before it was a
influencers came
thing.
around.
Yeah, before it was a thing, my profile picture would be me somewhere,
Oh,
in
wow.
the world. But most of the time I enjoyed putting my pictures somewhere in Africa. And then that's how people would ask, oh, where's this? And then I'll tell them. And then my parents would be like, you're just sending us all these people. Why don't you take part and, be more involved? And that's when it really became serious. Like, okay, which part of the business do you fit in, and what's your place in space, in everything that's going on, so that you can flourish. Yes.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. Sometimes it takes, when God nudges us, I would say it takes somebody to validate what you're calling it.
Yes.
And sometimes the seed takes a little bit of time to sink into you. Have you
Yes.
embraced it?
So I have now embraced it, but it took years.
I,
It took
I can relate.
a long time, because like you say, you get a nudge, then you're like, yeah, but
Yep.
especially when, let's say if my career in finance, I was unhappy or things were going downhill. Maybe it would have been like, okay, this
Easy
is,
transition.
yeah. But because I still enjoy the world of finance till today. And so it became really tough because you start praying and asking God, like, is this what you really want for me? And yeah, you go through that tug. But yeah, that's how it happened.
Oh, no, I just had to point it out that because I went through my own with the struggle because I'm just like, I love finance. I'm in finance as well. So it's amazing
Mhm.
how our life is a bit parallel. Um,
Yeah.
so the fact that I'm like, I have a proper job and doing this, I don't know how this is works together, but eventually
Yes.
I realized it actually works together. I had to go through a certain journey in order to be able to do this. So it's the same thing for
Yeah.
you, my dear. I'm so excited that you've
Mhm.
aligned with this. This is amazing. So how has your family history influenced you in a way that you run the agency today, the global agency?
Oh, I think it's the cornerstone of the mission of how the agency runs and everything that we do, because growing up in our family, it was a household that always has guests. We're always
Mm,
preparing for someone. So hospitality was like the thing, whether it be preparing dinners, making sure, and when you're young and people visit and maybe your parents over invite so many people, and then now you have to fix your room up to make sure
yeah.
that whoever's gonna take your room, they're comfortable. And I remember having been told, okay, it's your turn to do the bed, go fix your room and things like that.
Hmm.
So just that sense of hospitality and being there, especially guiding people through traveling, is just nerve-wracking. Yes, the small snippets of social media can make it seem fun, but when you're in an airport in the middle of nowhere in another country, it can be very terrifying. So uh, being in a household where um, we were taught how to interact with others and try to make them comfortable and understand where the other person's coming from.
Yeah.
Those are the two major foundations that we use in our agency, so that once people are traveling with us, anywhere they go, they can feel at home because they know we're there for them, like 24/7.
My goodness. You have the
Mhm.
passion for Africa. What fuels your passion for the continent? And
Mhm.
how do you incorporate the love into Hungwe?
Yes, so when you become part of the diaspora and
Yeah.
you start meeting people from all these amazing countries, and because it's one thing when you go somewhere on vacation,
Mm-hmm.
it's a honeymoon. It's like experiencing a honeymoon phase of travel the entire time. But
Yeah.
when you immigrate, there's something that becomes real once you're there and you're like, okay, I'm not going home. This is not a holiday. This is not,
This is
a
it.
vacation. Yes. So um having left Zimbabwe at a young age and then being reintroduced to it when I was a teenager, and then you're learning the country, and then almost being yanked out again to go to college, and then you're now like an immigrant elsewhere, it fuels your passion, because it's almost like I feel I went there for high school, then I left. So I never felt like I got everything I wanted. It's like I was pulled out when I was just getting the hang of
Mm.
everything. So even after I came for college, I remember I would go and visit home. And when I would go back, it gave me a new sense of, no, I need to learn this place, And because here I had friends from all over the continent. And, I remember my neighbors were from Kenya. In the dorm room, one of my besties was from Nigeria. So you start
Oh.
learning, oh yeah, we eat this, or we do this, So that ignited the passion for the continent. And then my father growing up always used to talk about, oh, oh, it's so beautiful. Do you remember this? Do you remember that? Like every time those are the things he'll talk about. Like, oh, do you remember when if you're in Zimbabwe, you were young, but when we go back, you're going to do this, you're going to see this. So even on my visits back to Zimbabwe, my parents would always encourage me to explore another African country.
Mm.
Yes. So just that whole community of people, that's what gave me the drive to say, you know what, I want to learn about the continent and learn the continent from the people in the continent. Because a lot of the books and education and things I was reading, they were written. There's a book which chronicles Africa by, Martin Meredith that I read. And then after reading that book, it made me yearn to see literature actually written by Africans about Africa. And since then, I just spiraled and it became the theme of what Hungwe Travel was about, because when I'd learn something new, I would share with my American friends, my European friends, and then that would now give them the incentive to visit all these countries.
Amazing. Amazing.
Mhm.
So entrepreneurship, as someone who leverages entrepreneurship, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? You guys have been in existence 28 years, even though, your parents owned, you are part of it.
Yes.
What advice would you give to someone who's looking to be in the travel industry?
Passion is like the first
Yeah.
thing. Yes. The common thread I've seen regarding entrepreneurship in any line of business is that love and passion for what you do, because there are going to be moments where you're tested and you feel like the world is crumbling beneath everything that you're trying to do or build. And just that resilience to know that this, like, really introspecting to know, like, okay, this is what I'm meant to be doing. Because a lot of times it's easy to look outward before you look inward. And then you're like, okay, so-and-so's their career is amazing, and just looking at the dollar signs, like, oh, these careers make this much and this career makes that much, without first introspecting to say, okay, how passionate am I about this thing, to see it through so that I can get through that stormy period to the other side. So the main thing is resilience, passion, and just never giving up.
Amazing. So you guys are traveling to Rwanda and Zimbabwe. Any other country I'm missing?
Yeah, so we've done trips, South Africa.
Oh, South Africa.
Yes, pretty
Botswana?
much we've done Botswana,
Nice.
Namibia, Senegal, Ghana, Cape
Wow.
Verde. So pretty
So you're just
much,
missing our country. Is this on
no,
purpose?
in Zambia, of course. We've done
We're
like,
neighbors.
yes. And Zambia for the devil's pool.
Oh my
Everybody says,
goodness. I
that's
am
the
good.
highlight.
I am good.
If anything, like when you have a cool sister, that's how I feel about that Victoria Falls,
Yes.
Zambia space. It's everyone asks about it, and then they're like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, that's our neighbors. So I always feel like, it's like the cool sister,
I love it. I love that
Yeah.
analogy. I love it. So, could you paint a picture for us on what it's like to travel with you guys, especially to, let's say, your country, Zimbabwe, and also Rwanda, because Rwanda is something that's new, unlike
Mhm.
everywhere else, because of
Yeah.
everybody knows what happened in Rwanda. So now there's a lot of people traveling to Rwanda. What does that look like for people traveling with you guys?
So for us, we take out the planning phase where pretty much we help you see, like, okay, what is possible when you're visiting any particular country. And then we also try to learn the interests of the traveler. So with most places, like, you know, we're just talking about Zambia and Devil's Pool. South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia are seasoned in tourism because
Yes.
they've been doing this for decades. So a lot of time it's people are looking like, okay, there are these experiences I can do, like a safari and the like. Then when it comes to Rwanda, where it's new, the aspect I love about it is, yes, it touches on the tourism and the experiences, but the highlight for me is the experience go beyond connecting humanity, because seeing everything they went through and then now being in that same space and seeing people living together, getting along and getting past the trauma of past hurts, that visit does more. Yes, nature, going back to nature already does something for you, for humanity. But going back to a space and time where you are amongst people who've lived through trauma and see them excel above it, goes even above and beyond anything that you can experience in your travels, because it gets you back in touch with humanity, and it gets you back in touch with to the core of who you are in this, you know, in your sphere of influence, who you are in like the global sphere with the technology now connecting everyone, and just back to the basics of really on a human level, seeing people beyond just all these like things that sometimes distract us from our humanity. And that's what like what Rwanda does for me and many of the people that we've helped to go there.
Beautiful. How long does it take? Let's say someone is traveling from New York to Rwanda.
So from Rwanda, you can connect through Europe or via Ghana. So on average, you're looking at least about a 16-hour flight between going to Europe and connecting to Rwanda, or the the flight to Ghana, then you fly down using Kenyan Airways via Nairobi. So yeah, so it's a little bit of a trip, but it's actually not bad because it's broken up into.
You get to see the other countries. That's how I look at it.
Yes,
you
definitely.
go to Nairobi, you get to Kenya, you can do a big layaway and you get to see a little bit of the country that you're going to. Then
yes, and
and
Ethiopian Airways has like a direct flight from most major US cities that connects in Addis to like several African countries. They're pretty much the gateway into the continent in terms of airlines. So that also makes it so efficient in terms of traveling and getting there. And like you say, most African countries now offer like the day tour, so that if your layovers are long, we can plan for you to leave the airport, at least experience, a little bit of the culture, come back and catch your flight. And then, yeah, you visited basically 2 for 1, countries. Yes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, you have the ToseSonke organization.
Yes.
So, could you tell us more about this and what inspired this organization to come up?
So, ToseSonke started from my love for chess and giving back to the continent. And yeah, so, being in the diaspora and then going back and forth, and then you almost when you revisit the country or you're in touch with old friends and family, it can seem isolating like being out here. And I remember when I started getting back into the swing of just knowing day-to-day news, I was like, yeah, I'm reading news, what's going on here in the US. Let me start, reading the daily news in some like different African countries. So I'd sign up for like different news stations. And one of the things that I noticed is because of, I guess, modernization, I started to yearn for that family bond, like for others, because I have it, and I was like, "Ah, you know, what ways, I'd see things like stories of orphans, towns, just different things happening where I was like, we need to go back to the basics of being together, and creating that safe space for people who have no family structure to feel a part of something. And that's pretty much how ToseSonke came to be. And a good friend of mine who was also living here in the US from Zimbabwe, asked me like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I mentioned to him how I wanted to give back in Zimbabwe. And on one trip back to Zimbabwe, my dad said, just think of something that you already do and do that, incorporating like people in Zimbabwe. And then I was like, oh, because my dad and I used to love playing chess. So that was our moment, like where we would catch up over a game of chess, and with the internet would play online. So my dad encouraged me to use something that I already know, which was chess. So I started playing chess with like random strangers in Zimbabwe, people who either were lonely or even people who had family, but they just want to connect with other people.
Yeah.
And then now my friend here in the US was pushed me and nudged me and said, I know you're doing your chess thing and it's at this level, but I need you to ramp it up some, and challenged me pretty much to say, all these stories I hear, like each time we catch up, you tell me that, oh, you've played chess with someone, and then you introduce them to someone back home, and now they have a job. You've played a game of chess with someone, you learned about this person, and then you gave them these nuggets, or they told you this, and now it's helped you in your career here in the US. So through that exchange, that's how ToseSonke became what it was and how we registered as a nonprofit. And through chess, we've been able to just pretty much that's our bridge to different communities. It helps keep children out of trouble because they can come and learn how to play chess. And then for myself personally, it helped me in my adult life just strategize, because with chess, you have to see all the moving pieces. And it's the same thing with life. You have to balance all these moving pieces. So we partner with several chess organizations across the continent. And a lot of them are doing amazing things. And we've been able to have some of them children in different African countries play chess online with children here in the US so that they can learn the different cultures. And it's just amazing to see the growth in other social spaces that, it has touched. And then the main thing that I think it taught me is, and sometimes I get a lot of pushback on this, but one of my favorite authors and phenomenal, like author is not even, she's like the finance, the be all and all of finance in the African space. Dambisa Moyo wrote a book called Dead
Oh,
Aid,
nice.
which is that book literally changed my life and exposed me to start seeing how, yes, we want to help communities back home, but instead of always just focusing on sending things back home, we can support industries back home by actually creating jobs.
Yep.
Yes. So through ToseSonke, reading that book and just following the phenomenal work that all these Africans are doing, that's what made me start realizing, like, no, social entrepreneurship is the way to go to eradicate poverty and to also just bring people together.
I love it. You answered one of my questions. Remember when I was telling you that you answer my questions as you go? Because I wanted to use your chess metaphor, but you did answer my question on that. What has been some of your most memorable experiences in travel?
Wow. So my memorable experiences center all around the amazing people I've met all over the world. Like, you know, you meet people and then you hear their stories of the people they've met,
Yeah.
And it becomes this common thread where it's like, or sometimes I remember once I was in Saudi Arabia and this guy told me a joke and I was laughing and I was like, you guys laugh at that too? Oh yeah, in our language, So just to see the common thread of humanity through everyone you meet as you travel, and then just seeing the core of most of the cultures. And I often joke with my European friends that technically you're African because life began in Africa and then migration started, like everyone, we all migrated from Africa and then became different slightly. Then now we still migrate. But those are like my core memories are all these people I meet, all the cultures, the cuisine, but even the culture and the cuisine, it's all tied into the people.
Yes.
And that just it just gives me so many aha moments when I'm like just thinking and reflecting on all the people I've met, what they've taught me, and the experiences of just a conversation.
Wow. I usually say, from my little travel I've done, the most common thing that I've come to realize is how similar we are compared to how different we are, no matter how different our cultures are. Because even here, I would say most of the foods that we eat, I mean, we eat shima, we call it shima back home for us, but you guys eat the same. And the Italians have it, the Russians have it. And it opened up my mind. I was just like, wow, it's just different names, different, like we're all so alike. And it opens you up to receive so much and be accepting of others.
Yes.
Oh, I love what you guys are doing for the community. I mean, congratulations are in order for you. You recently were recognized. Do you mind sharing?
Yes. So in Zimbabwe, they have awards for, I guess, the CEOs, in this case, in the travel space.
Yeah.
Hungwe Travel was recognized as one of the trailblazers in terms of management in travel and all the work we're doing, especially with intra-Africa travel. And so it was an honor because, our team has been working relentlessly. Yes. And like you say, our team is composed of Africans as well as non-Africans.
Yeah.
But, just highlighting all the possibilities of what the continent has to offer and giving that, a lot of people take for granted the years of the narrative regarding the African continent or African immigrants, and people don't realize, like, no, it's like a field of flowers where you get to see everyone from different walks of life from the continent and with different experiences. So for us, it was an honor because that's what we're passionate about, is the diversity within Africa, and being recognized as being a trailblazer is always an honor because then you're doing something right.
No, I'm beaming. My cheeks hurt just from smiling so much right now. It's amazing. Speaks volumes. Yeah, everybody wants to be, recognized at some point. yes, we bury our heads and do what we are meant to be doing, our calling, our missions, but it also gives you a little bit of, oh my goodness, people are seeing what we're doing, and it's great to have that recognition. So well deserved
Yes.
to you and your team and your
Thank
parents.
you.
Really well deserved. So
Thank
what are
you.
some of the challenges? The industry is huge.
Mm,
There's so many people kind of doing similar things, and with what happened, like the pandemic and what's happening even now,
mm.
what are some of the challenges that you guys face doing throughout this travel industry?
Yeah, so the challenges sometimes are, uh, I guess, the disconnect between um, the corporate side of certain industries like hotels, airlines,
Mm,
especially with the pandemic, they were hit hard, and a lot of airlines are still trying to recover,
mm,
and then others sadly just can't make it because it's a very competitive industry, and then um, it's very capital intensive. And I think sometimes it it takes a level of appreciation where, like people know, like, okay, doctors are gonna go to school for years, it's
yeah.
so expensive. And I think the educating people or the masses on how for us to be in this space in humanity where air travel, even intra Africa, where mostly it used to be buses, but now most people in Africa are also using planes.
Yes.
Um, it takes a lot of grit to have a facility like an airline running, uh, hotels running, the food and beverage industry.
Mm,
And with everything that's happened in the pandemic, um, you know, one of the things I always implore people is no, really learn about the nuances, and then maybe you can give a little grace in this hiccup or
sure.
this time we're in where they're trying to rebound,
Mm-hmm.
because it's yeah, it's capital intensive, a lot of people in the space, and a lot of behind the scenes. And then being in finance, so you realize like, oh, they need to buy fuel, so they're using their futures contracts to purchase
Mm-hmm.
oil for flights that are going to happen 6 months from now. And then if the price of oil goes up, down, like there are all these little dots that, when you buy your flight, you're not connecting the human resource part with the pilots, the flight attendants, then
Oh,
the oil part that someone is sitting on Wall Street for, on behalf of the airlines trying to purchase this commodity for them, so it's intricate. And as such, um, we should have grace for each other in this time when, the industry is still trying to rebound.
listen, I can talk to you forever. As you are talking, there's so many questions that are coming up. So where do you consider home? Being in the diaspora or being home in Zimbabwe?
Yes, so you moving to and living in another country, and then now sort of splitting your time between all these places. Often when people ask me, I always say I now coin myself like a global citizen,
Oh,
because
that's fair.
because because um home, yeah, I would say home definitely here, like in New York, is home, like,
Yeah,
because it's a melting pot of every country. So if anything, the whole world is New York is a perfect representation of the whole world.
yeah.
So definitely here it's home because of that aspect. But having, roots in Zimbabwe, and then now traveling throughout the African continent and seeing all these amazing countries that I can every time I visit, I never want to leave. I want to leave my stake there and say, okay, next holiday I'm in Zambia, next holiday I'm in Rwanda, next holiday I'm in Ethiopia. It makes it tough to pick one place.
Yeah.
So usually I'm like, and I think that's where the world is going, slowly but surely. We're
Yeah.
all going to be like just global citizens and um, live a few months in certain countries and then go to others. And that's the future I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing playing out. That will soon be the way of life in the future.
Yeah. No, I love that you're saying that the world is going through that direction. There's one of my friends I interviewed, Erica. She's traveled, she's been to 40 plus countries, and I'm sure it's been more since we spoke. And she spoke about living 3 months in New York or wherever she is in the US, and then 3 months in Ghana, because she's married to a Ghanaian, and then 3 months somewhere else. I forgot which country she said. So I took a page of her. I was like, I'll steal a page from your book and kind of do similar,
Yeah.
because you could come here, especially for us who experience horrible winters. It's like,
Yes.
come in the summer or be here when it's a bit warmer, and then
Mhm.
be in my country or Cape Town. For in my case, I want to retire in Cape Town, if anything.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely the world is going through that direction. Do you
Mhm.
feel like you've come full circle?
I think I have, because you sort of go through this, with being African, community is like the epitome of everything that we do. And then you come to the diaspora, and then you're pretty much you're faced with having to face yourself
Yeah.
and be your own friend and start
Yeah.
having this internal dialogue. And then you start questioning identity because you're creating a life elsewhere. So I've gone through the whole cycle. And then I think the eye of the storm is when you start seeing content where, where people in the diaspora are fighting with the people back home, where it's like the us versus them, but you're both, like, if you're
Yes.
Zimbabwean, you're both Zambians. But then it's like, oh, you diaspora people, you come home and you do this. Then you
Mm-hmm.
have the diaspora people complaining, oh, the people back home don't understand.
Yep.
and, and because and because something internally, I guess we're conditioned to always pick either or, like, so after you kind of get through that storm, and then you pretty much are like, okay, let me get back to the center of who am I, and and you've passed that us versus them, and trying to place yourself somewhere.
Mm. that's
That's the space where I eventually came to. And since that happened, I just am I take all the cultural aspects of Zimbabwe that I love, all the cultural aspects and things I've learned living in the US, and pretty much commingle them to create what works, um, for me. And then once I think you get into that space, you start meeting all these people who are in the same, like, bubble, I guess.
Yes.
And then you realize, like, oh no, there's actually a lot of people who've kind of gone through this metamorphosis. And I was the one who was just yet to discover it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I know you're still young, but I want to ask this question, and I'm sure one day you reflect on it as to your answer. What legacy do you hope to leave through your work or at Hungwe and
Mhm.
also ToseSonke?
Yes, so the legacy I hope to leave is the power of self-identity, like discovering, the self, and then using that to drive purpose. So, um, through Hungwe Travel, we've created jobs. And because we can't be everywhere at the same time, I've spoken to people who've moved, sometimes who are in the diaspora and have moved back home, and say, these are kind of experiences that we like, and they've taken ideas. So the legacy I want to leave is that everyone who visits, especially the African continent, experiences or is in touch or goes through the hands of someone where Hungwe Travel inspired them to build a business or something that expresses the culture, expresses themselves as a person, because that's what people travel to see. And knowing that we spearheaded and were like the forefront of making sure that even within Africa, we start, Africans visit, they know Dubai like the back of their hands.
Yeah.
They know Europe, they know
They
elsewhere.
really do, yes.
But we don't know our continent.
True.
So that mark is where that's my purpose, is when people visit Africa through all the people that we've been able to touch, that Hungwe Travel leaves a mark so that Africans are empowered to know that we're rich in culture, we're rich linguistically, everything. Afrobeats right now is like the top of, music. So we have a rich culture, we have a lot to offer. And if we can now also start, although we do integrate, but now start making those tourism dollars circulate on the continent.
Yeah.
Go shopping in Zambia. Then from there, maybe your favorite shoemaker is in Kenya, things like that. That's what I want to do.
Beautiful, beautiful. Any words other than what you've just shared? Anything that's on your heart that you would like to leave the audience with?
Because I want to use this time to thank you for what you're doing, tuning into the podcast and just hearing everyone's life stories. It's that fuel that keeps all of us going, and being in the diaspora anyway, be traveling, when people are traveling or you actually choose to immigrate, you realize that sometimes family is all these people around your journey. But through podcasts like this, you create another tribe of family that gets, from all over the world. And to see all these amazing people just never giving up, showing resilience. It's just, thank you for highlighting that, because that's the fuel that keeps us going. And for me to be where I am, it's tuning into podcasts like yours and hearing someone's story. And then sometimes it answers to something that I'm facing and saying, oh, this is, a sense of inspiration. Don't give up. Here's someone doing it.
Thank you so much. This has been an honor to have you on. It's been a long time coming, and I'm so grateful we finally did it. How can people find you? How can people sign up for Hungwe? And I know I'm mispronouncing your
ToseSonke.
Yes. I'm like, oh my goodness, all the Zimbabweans are just gonna kill me.
Yeah, so they can find us. We're on most of social media, Instagram, Facebook, websites. We're, www.tosesonke.com and also www.hungwetravel.com. But yeah, pretty much if you just key in Hungwe Travel or ToseSonke, our contact details are there, and you can send us a WhatsApp, an Insta DMs, and we're always there.
Oh my goodness. This has been amazing. So inspired. I can't wait to travel with you guys. I really want to visit Rwanda. For anybody wanting to see Africa for the first time, see it using Hungwe's eyes, They'll show you a good time. And yeah, amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you for all you're doing for the continent. We appreciate you.
Thank you.